here we have my full silicone sitting on one of my tail stands. Today I am going to finally show you guys how myself and my boyfriend built my mermaid tail stands. For a little while we were making and selling them, and we realized it was just a little too much work to try to ship them out to people. So I'm going to do a video showing you guys exactly how we made ours and all of the parts that you would need to make one. And of course, these can be switched and swapped up however you might need them for your tail. But I use it on my full silicone with a full monofin inside of it. And the monofin I have in here is a finished shooter. And so it's a more rigid fluke. It's not a floppy fluke. So depending on your tail, do what would be best for your tail. And please note that it is always a little bit dangerous to have your tails sitting upright. So you are taking a small risk. Mine's been sitting up on a tail stand for about a year now, and it doesn't seem to be having any problems, but it could. So I just want to make sure and kind of give a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that I don't know what kind of tail you have. I don't necessarily recommend storing your tails like this all the time, but they're especially amazing for drying them, because then you can let all the water out and put a fan in them, and then maybe lay them down and store them too, whatever might work for you. So without further ado, I have my list of parts. And this is something that Zeke also built with me, so bear with me, but I'm going to show you guys how to put it together. So here we have my full silicone sitting on one of my tail stands. I used to have two silicones, so I have two stands, and I'm keeping this other one around for when my next silicone is done, but it keeps it completely upright. And it's great because the fluke is able to kind of lay backwards. It's not straight up, it's on an angle, and it will let out any water and different stuff that might be in here that would cause your tail to mold or stay wet or what have you. And it also looks really nice. So this is my mermaid room, which is where I store all my tails, including the ones on the tail stands. So this is just kind of it's not a very formal video, okay? So I hope that you'll be able to figure out how to put together my stand by the end of it. And I will also include a parts list, which is the most important part, is having the parts list, and then hopefully you can use this video to help yourself put it together, but it really isn't difficult. So the first thing I'm gonna show you guys is the base, and we painted mine a coral color, and then the other one is teal to match the two tails I had. So this piece right here is a pine edge glued panel round board, and it's 1 by 2 by 2, so 2 feet each direction, 1 inch in thickness. The first thing I have to say here, guys, is if you're gonna go with wood, make sure you weather seal it, because your tails are gonna dump out liquids and water and whatever else gross stuff might be in there. And you don't want the board to warp, so make sure that you seal it with a weather protectant. And then the other thing we did is we reinforced it on the back side, which I'll show you in a minute, and that helps so that the tail stand can't warp and start to sway. This was something I learned from not doing it to my first tail stand, is the point in which the bracket that holds the stand would go in started to cave in and bend and break because of all the drainage I let go onto the round. And I've since learned that I just need to put a bucket underneath of the tail when I initially hang it up if it's super wet, so that I don't have a ton of water dumped down on the round. So here is the 2 by 2 pine wood round. You can weather seal it and paint it however you like. And then on the back, to reinforce it, is some starboard. There's no right or wrong way to do this, so we've just got a couple pieces stacked of starboard and it's screwed into the round. What this does is it prevents the wood from warping up and making kind of a concave shape. So as far as the size and what kind of stuff to use, this is totally up to you, but starboard will not warp. It won't move at all, so that's great. And then what I've got here is a couple of holes on the base, and this is for the second main part of the tail stand, which is one of these guys right here. This is a 3/4 inch floor flange, and what this does is it goes onto your base, screws in, and then this is what holds the pulls that holds your tail. So it goes right here, and then it's 4 screws right into the plate. The key here, guys, is to make sure that you have it backed up to one side. If you put it in the center, then your tail will hang over the stand and it might be off balance. So to counterbalance it, if you put it towards the back, so I'm about 3 inches from the actual back and not in the center, and then that way my tail has room to hang over it and counterbalance. So that's the 3/4 inch floor flange, which gets screwed into the base. And then on the back side of the floor flange, I do have another piece of starboard. And what we've done is we've just made a small square starboard, and we're going to screw the flange into the wood and through to the starboard. The next step that I would do after the floor flange is screwed into the base is I would start assembling my stand itself. So I'm going to semi-assemble that for you now, and then I'll put the 2 pieces together. These guys are the most expensive part of the tail stand, but honestly, if you're trying to make something that's durable, they're worth the money. What I have here is 2 parts to the stand, and I have the top bar, which is they're both 24-inch bars. And then on the top bar, I've got a crossbar because that's gonna make the T for my fluke to hang on to. And then my other one is gonna go into the base of the stand, and it's got a coupling on it so that it can join up. So 2 24-inch pipes, and then we've got a coupling in the center to put the 2 together. And then we've got a cross joint on the top so that we can build out from here. And then the base here would go into the floor flange, but I'm not gonna do that until after I have the floor flange already screwed into the wooden base. The next main component from here is to make our T. Now this is where you can get crafty depending on what kind of tail you have. My tail is a larger fluke with a fin inside, a hard fin, not a silicone fin. So it has more structure and it sits up a little more rigid. And the important thing here, guys, is that you should go off of the size of your fluke. So you're gonna have 2 arms that sit out like this that are gonna hold your fluke the way you see the one behind me. And what you want is to have it at a length where you're holding the base of the monofin. So basically, if you feel out where your ankle bone is inside of your tail, that's essentially where you're gonna want those 2 arms to be if you're going that direction with it, so that it sits right on those and then splays out. The next step is to build out from the crossbar. And I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like. So we have 2 of these little pipes right here, which I'll have all this in the instructions list. But we're gonna have 2 little pipes, we're gonna have some elbow joints, and we're gonna make 2 of these identical. It's 4 pieces total. It's a cap, which basically these just go on the end so that you don't have the screw tether here. And then you've got your elbow joint and your 2 same size, smaller pipes. So I'm gonna put the 2 pipes into the elbow joint like this. And then whichever side is gonna be pointing out towards the environment is gonna get a cap on it like this. And this just helps so that you don't damage anything, or if you ran into it, it might not hurt as much. It just kind of cleans up the design a little. You have 2 little L's, and they are 4 pieces each. The 2 small pipes, the caps, and the elbow joints. And these guys are gonna go onto your cross joint. I'll just screw these in. And again, it all depends on your tail and your desired size. So if you needed it to be a longer design, you could get longer pipes. When you go to the hardware store, there's all kinds of different size pipes, so you can kind of choose from what your desire. I don't need these to be really long. I've got them about right there. And these are gonna act as my 2 arms that hold the fluke. And this is where I'm talking about how wide you want it depends on how big you make this bar. So if you made this bar longer, it would come higher up on the fluke, And if you made it shorter, it would come lower down on the fluke towards the heels. Together, mine are around 5 inches each, and they make about 10 inches. And then when you add these on, you're looking at almost a foot across. And if you needed it to be wider, you'd get longer poles. And if you needed it to be shorter, you'd get shorter poles. And that's all you have to do to make your 2 arms. From here, again, it's totally up to you and the desired effect you want on your tail stand. But I have a little back brace, and it's just another pipe. Again, just depends on how tall you need it or how short you need it. I'm just gonna put this pipe into the cross joint, and then again, I have a little cap to go on top just to keep the design nice and clean. And that's going to hold the back of my fluke so that my fluke doesn't flop over. And this allows it to kind of be on a tilted angle, not straight up, but it's not bending backwards. And then if you wanted, you could put something on here to protect it from touching your silicone. Some of the stuff that I use is like pool noodles, which you can see on here and I'll show you in a second. And you can put noodles or foam or whatever you want to protect on these 3. Another design that you could do is you could just make a total T across the top. If you wanted a second one, you could make 2 levels of these guys right here if you wanted 2 of them so that they braced the heels and they braced higher up on the fluke. If you wanted them to have more support on the back, it's kind of like once you get into this, the design is limitless because with the couplings and the joints, you can just kind of assemble it however you want. So this is a really clean design that works for my tail, and that's what it looks like from the back. And I'm basically just making a cross with some little arms. Now that I have the top built, I would add my foam noodles. And excuse the jankiness of them. These were like the last I had, and I haven't gone back and bought more. I'd like to buy some just black foam to go on it. But the nice thing is the pool noodles actually fit these perfectly. So it'll just slide right on top of it. And I don't have to do any cutting or maneuvering them at all, which is why I went with the pool noodles. And now I'm able to protect my silicone, and I don't have these tightened right now, but I'm able to protect my silicone when it's resting on them. And then I can also put a noodle on the back so that I have a kind of squishier surface for the tail to lay on. Now that I have the top cross built, I'm going to put it onto the base, and then that's it. It is literally that easy. Anyone can build one of these. They're really durable. We tried a couple of different designs, and this is what really worked for us with my tails. I've also put 2 silicone tails on one stand, which totals at like 65 pounds, and it held it with no problem. So if you do have a bigger, heavier tail, I don't think you'll have any issues with this design. And then just how you build it and at what size, you know, use your own knowledge as to like what would be best for your tail. And of course, keep safety in the forefront, especially with these silicone tails. They're not cheap, and I'd hate for you to make something that could damage it. You can also consult your tail maker and ask them about it first before you hang your tail a certain way and just get their opinion. The best way truly to store a tail is flat, and I do take my tail off and I do store it flat once in a while. However, I'm pretty limited on space, and this tail is really sturdy, so I've had no problems doing it. But if you're not gonna store it for looks like this, it is such a good drying rack. It's like a must to at least have it as a drying rack so that you can get all of that gross liquid out of the tail, stick a fan in the bottom, and let it just air it out. It's a great way to do it, and it's also fun if you need it for photo ops or in the background when you're filming a video, whatever, it works really well. And as I've said before, you can totally customize this design, but I will show you guys exactly what parts I used and the sizes that I used if you want to do an exact replication. And if you do build one of these tail stands, I would love for you to tag me in it. I'd love to see it. And if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. If there's another video you'd like to see from me, I always love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for weekly videos, and also find me at Vero Beach Mermaid and Brandy Anthony on all major social media platforms. I hope this helps you guys. Please enjoy, and please do what is best for your tail. I am not liable for any craziness that might happen with your tail if you build this stand. It's just what's working for me, and I've had so many people ask for me to share the design since we no longer sell and ship them to people. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.